Hello and welcome everyone to Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability's AI Series Session 2 about getting the benefits of productivity in AI. My name is Julie Bush. I am on the WCS Board of Directors and also the founder and president of Product Rehab, which is sponsoring the event today. Thank you so much for being here. Today's agenda is full of several different activities. We'll kick it off right away and get into the introductions of our panelists. We will discuss mind mapping and AI adoption. We'll have plenty of time for panel comments and discussion and also Q&A toward the end of the session. And we will end promptly at 10:30 Pacific time. Our mission at Women in Clean Tech and Sustainability is to foster an influential network of professionals to further the roles of women in growing the green economy and making a positive impact on the environment. A little bit of an overview of the AI workshop series. I mentioned this is number 2 in the 3-part series. Today, all about getting the benefits of productivity in AI. And then session 3 coming up in June will be about shaping the big opportunities with generative AI. Our moderator today is Darlene Crane with the Crane Works. She is a business strategist, growth and implementation advisor to ambitious founders, business owners, and organizations that support small and medium businesses. She guides entrepreneurs and organizations through the complexity of major growth steps to achieve objectives, build long-term value, and positive impact. I've been working with Darlene for about a year now, and I can tell you she is a wonderful visionary and person to work with. Over to you, Darlene.
Okay. Is mine? Okay.
It is.
Okay, next slide here. Welcome to our audience today. We're very excited about this. And our first of our speakers today is Pubali Sen, who is an artificial intelligence and machine learning specialist at Google. And she has over 14 years in solution architecture and AI to drive adoption and implementation of cutting-edge AI solutions. She empowers businesses to enhance their efficiency and scalability through strategically designed and delivered cloud-native, cost-effective, and performance-optimized AI solutions, serving a diverse range of enterprises, including ad tech and the fintech industries. Her interest in AI does extend beyond her professional role. She's a passionate advocate for fostering inclusivity and innovation, and championing women in tech and promoting ADHD and neurodiversity inclusion within the tech sector, and exploring the advancement of Gen AI. I'm going to move quickly to our next speaker. Rob Barlow is a professor and research fellow at Hult International Business Schools at the San Francisco campus, where he teaches courses on design thinking, business ethics, and the social sciences. He holds a Ph.D. in political science from Stanford University and has over 70 years of experience in academia and consulting. His current research focuses on the impact of digital technologies on consumer behavior, the role of design principles in shaping innovation, and the ethical implications for business and regulators. His work also explores corporate self-regulation, human-centered design, and the social impact of emerging technologies. Through collaborations with academic and industry partners, he is dedicated to helping business leaders integrate sustainability and ESG policies effectively while navigating the evolving AI landscape. So what we're going to do now is give each of the speakers a few minutes for you to get to know how they describe their work and their views and approach to AI. So I'm going to go to Pubali first, and then we'll go to Rob, where he's going to show some slides. And okay. Oh,
Hey everyone, nice to meet you. Thank you, darling, for the introduction. Welcome everyone. It is a very exciting time and a chaotic time to be in the intersection of small businesses, clean tech, sustainability, and the rapidly evolving technologies that we are seeing today, especially in form of AI. For small and medium-sized businesses, where I see AI being a toolkit, which is beyond something that you can adopt personally and professionally as well. Don't think about AI as something that is having the capability to train massive data science team or something that will involve a lot of cycles when it comes to adopting. It's more about how do you think about strategically and smartly adoption so that you can leverage the best form of productivity in your day-to-day life and in your professional products as well. My goal today is to cut through the noise, help you identify real opportunities, and build a practical approach to AI. Professionally speaking, this is actually something that I'm doing with different enterprises today, where I'm helping them leverage AI to push boundaries and to adopt and go into production as soon as possible. So I'm excited to be here and looking forward to this discussion today. Thank you.
okay. Rob, you want to take a few minutes here?
Sure. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I am, Darlene did a wonderful job of introducing me. My background is diverse, but I'm currently really heavily focused on the implementation of AI within organizations. I teach a course on it at my university, and in particular, thinking about the role that it plays in helping businesses to achieve sustainability outcomes. So I'm a specialist in what are called design thinking processes, and I'm doing research on the design of marketing systems and corporate organizations for sustainability. So less an expert in, the broad panoply of different tools that are out there and available, and more in the process through which businesses can discover them and better understand how to implement them within their organizations. And so my goal today is really to think in terms of the underlying processes that small and medium-sized businesses may need to undertake in order to sort of bring AI more organically within their organization. So I thought it would be useful and probably important for me to just briefly introduce the concept of design thinking, or the idea of design principles, before we jump into my panel discussion, since I'll probably refer to them again a few times. So fundamentally, the challenges that businesses like your own are facing are they are a design problem, right? You have businesses that are facing political uncertainty, rising costs, competition, and the fundamental question that you are probably asking, or many businesses are asking, is how can you redesign your processes and operations to integrate AI? And so with that in mind, I just want to briefly, just a really high level description of what a design thinking outlook would say. A design thinking is really grounded in this idea of solving problems through a specific process. It's not anything that's particularly groundbreaking or will blow your mind, but I think it's a good foundation for thinking about how to redesign organizations in light of the challenges that they face and the ways in which AI can help them to overcome them. So I just want to briefly cover that and then jump off here. Let me. So design thinking really is, it's elementary. There's really just four main kinds of steps. And the idea really is that as you're trying to think about it, to implement it as a process, when you're trying to think about implementing or integrating AI within your organization, there's really four kinds of phases. The first is just empathy, right? Understand the people you're designing for and what they experience. And that may even be you, right? What are the specific challenges they face? Try to get onto the ground, really understand and identify those challenges. identify a clear core challenge that can be sort of the jumping off point that's based on these user needs. So it starts with connection with the user and then articulating what the problem really is. Generating ideation is really brainstorming. It's really just coming up with solutions. And AI itself, Gen AI, as I'm going to talk about extensively, really repeatedly, is the tool for this, right? It's a tool it's an all-purpose tool. Things like ChatGPT, Copilot, they're not the fanciest, buzziest tools out there, but they are fundamentally important and can really be your partner in sort of undertaking this process of analyzing your business and trying to understand where there's an opportunity for AI to really benefit you. And one of the ways it can do so is really by coming up with ideas for you. And then prototyping, which is crucial. And that really is that before you dive into invest, and it's probably something that's daunting to some small and medium-sized business owners, before you jump into buying expensive commercial grade software, you probably should undertake an effort to understand whether the transformation you're proposing will actually generate real value for your business. And that's where prototyping comes in, just building quick, low-risk versions of ideas. So for example, it might just be something as simple as right, a tool for generating content for email, right? You can build very simple tools in programs like ChatGPT that can help you to achieve that, and you can actually test and measure the results before you move on to sort of the heavier duty commercial grade software. And of course, testing then is really it's a process of iteration. It's a process of repetition. So I'm going to leave it at that. But what I really want to emphasize just from the outset is that I believe that I have a kind of point of view on this, and that is that there's value in us telling you about tools you can try and different kinds of sophisticated commercial grade applications you can try. But the root of the power of this sort of AI movement for people who own small and medium-sized businesses, to me, is really having a partner in these generative AI assistants, ChatGPT, Copilot, the basics, to help you to navigate the problems that exist within your own business, and then try to solve them, identify the value they can bring, and then use those tools to help you scale up and identify the kinds of more sophisticated programs and options that might be available to you to really generate that value for yourself over the longer term. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to cut too much into any more time, but I just sort of thought it was important to set that context.
Okay, before we kick off the panel discussion, this is Darlene. I wanted to kind of set the context that small businesses, freelancers, anyone that's independently trying to generate some income or cash flow at this current time is what are the conditions we're all facing? So first of all, 99% of small and mid-sized businesses are using AI operationally in some way. But we're generally using it as, add-ons to existing apps we use regularly. And so Copilot and ChatGPT are also very well known. And Copilot's built into Microsoft. But only 40% of small businesses are using generative AI, which is the more creative side, innovative side of AI. And there's a lot of confusion among small business about how to apply it. That's based on a recent survey by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. The other more underlying issue is that historically, small businesses have made their money of really controlling costs and being able to generate enough revenue to stay profitable, but at very thin profit margins. And according to the Federal Reserve Bank, a report came out this weekend on the survey of employer small businesses, that the struggle now is revenue, that because of rising costs and changes in consumer behavior, small businesses just are not generating enough revenue. And then the kicker in the last couple of months has been the high uncertainty about tariffs. And so that if those go into effect, they can wipe out whatever profits small businesses have been able to generate. So we're in a pressure cooker environment. And so anything that can help us, we should be taking advantage of. And since AI, it's huge potential, but it's sort of in the middle of the development. Even the big companies are struggling with how do I really optimize or make AI work for me? So this is a real opportunity for small businesses since it's easy to get into. But the challenge, I think, for each of us is to say, how are we going to create that new value in the future? And how can we really make AI a powerful ally? So pay attention today, guys. Take notes. We're going to send you the slides and the tools. And this is our time for you. Um, we're going to go into 4 basic questions. The first one we're going to kick off is the key one. How can small businesses get greater benefits from current AI tools, and especially in the revenue generation processes? So can we go to the screen with the 2 speakers? Pubali, could you kick us off here? Can we have the screen change?
So, hey everyone, thank you, Darlene, for the question. Firstly, when you talk about SME, small, medium enterprises, there is a significant opportunity when it comes to revenue generation benefits by using the AI tools. I do want to point out that AI has been there, machine learning has been there since a lot of years. What has changed? Since 2022, what has changed is the democratization of AI. Today, AI is more like a companion or a toolkit that I can talk to in my own language, in my own persona, which means that several places you can be the agency to adopt AI within your daily work, within your org. In tying it back to how can I get profit in terms of adopting AI, especially in revenue generation, there are a couple of things to think about. Firstly is, what are my pain points here? Is it enhanced customer experience and personalization that I need AI to come into? And that's where you think about AI powered chatbots, where I do not have to massively go ahead and create a chatbot, but something I can start with very low hanging fruit, like, hey, I can do a no code kind of a thing and start with my customer experience. Similarly, you can think about different tools that can be adopted for personalized recommendations. Now, depending on how you have designed your product, AI algorithms within CRM systems, for example, Zoho the CRM, can analyze customer behavior and purchasing history and suggest relevant product. You have tailored marketing as well, analyzing customer data to segment different audiences. Think about another place where AI would come in and help you is AI driven lead sourcing. And this is more like lead generation and sales. CRM systems with AI capabilities can help you analyze those leads. Sales automation is again any places where you can have automation for repetitive sales tasks like data entry, scheduling follow up emails, or even like generating initial drafts for sales proposals. Those are the places where AI can effectively come and help you. Finally, I would like to talk about content generation and content for marketing, where generative AI plays a big role. Think about tools like ChatGPT, Jasper. Now, if you want to go into the enhancements of images, think about stability, think about DALI, think about Imagine, where it's pretty quick to generate a marketing copy website content, blog post, etc. to get started. Overall, there are a lot of patterns in which AI can be adopted and can be adopted in a place where you can adopt early and and fall fast and then move ahead. So these are the places where I see AI being very effective when it comes to revenue generation for small businesses.
So I think I want to that failing early and failing fast. I mean, I think that's really an important insight and one that I think is crucial. Like AI, the use of artificial intelligence is so often to improve business operations is so often about trial and error, effectively iterative improvement, right? Trying to you find a problem, you find a place where there's potentially more efficiency to be built into your processes. You maybe build something on your own. I'm going to show you just briefly an example of what that might look like. Or you find, excuse me, a commercial solution, and you try to keep track of its effectiveness, obviously, from a revenue generation standpoint, and iterate and make modifications over time. So if I can, I'll just share one more set of brief slides because I have a sort of example that I actually use generative AI to create a hypothetical company and might just sort of walk through what that process looks like a little bit. In particular, many of you may be familiar with custom GPTs, right? The idea that you can create in ChatGPT almost like little mini programs that execute particular tasks that you've defined for them. I'm going to show you just a very simple way that you could walk through a very quick process within your organization, find a place where maybe you can gain some leverage or value, and get to the point where you have something that functions that might actually benefit your company and serve as a sort of prototype jumping off point for getting into maybe more expensive commercial applications. Excuse me. So I'm actually going to jump. I'll just briefly jump. I'll jump on the slides, and then I'm actually going to just get into ChatGPT and use it for you briefly, if that's okay. So this example I constructed using ChatGPT. It's Solterra Labs. This isn't a real company. It's just a hypothetical one that ChatGPT came up with. I think it's a good example of the kind of work that can be done by founders, people within small and medium-sized businesses on sort of solving their own problems using AI as their right-hand person. So Solterra Labs, a US-based clean tech startup, they specialize in low-carbon building materials made from industrial byproducts, and they have a sort of patented geopolymer concrete that they use that reduces CO2 emissions. They had early success with their pilot projects, and they have some seed investment, but scaling the business depends heavily on securing external funding, which is a problem that many of you may be facing. In particular, government and private grants focused on decarbonization, green building, and infrastructure resilience. So it's entirely possible that, right, like your process would be, let's talk about the different people within the company who are performing functions, and let's find out where their pain points are. And it may very well be that for Solterra, right, the team that's dedicated to grant writing and production, they may identify the fact that they're overwhelmed, right? There's tons of opportunities, but each application demands tailored narrative responses. Project data and language for the company, they live in different silos. They're all over the place. They're distributed. They've lost opportunities for these grants due to missed deadlines or incomplete submissions. And hiring a full-time grant writer is costly and time-consuming, right? People are just being pulled in too many different directions. This is the kind of place where AI can present real value, and it's only through the consultation with actual users, the people on the ground, that we can identify these opportunities. So what do they need? They need a tool that can scale their storytelling capacity and ensure consistency and respond to high-value opportunities. In other words, they need a way to write high-quality, tailored grant proposals more efficiently because their small team can't keep up with the funding opportunities and the complexity of customizing each application. There's problems like this, throughout different businesses. And so we can look to AI as a potential way to solve this problem. And what's important is I want to just show you how to build a really low-fi prototype that might actually do this for the business in a sort of rudimentary way. We don't need to jump through what all of the different things that an AI tool can do, but it suffices to say they can rewrite proposals for different funders. They can reuse content in different ways and mix and match it for you without you having to be directly involved. translate technical work, and help you to avoid time pressure and bottlenecks. So I've built a prototype. I'll show you how to do it in one moment, that can draft these kinds of things 60 to 70% faster, keep the tone and metrics and messaging aligned. It's scalable. You can pursue more grants without adding staff, and you can improve proposals over time with feedback. You can change this prototype very quickly. And what it's going to do is write grants for you based on whatever the application demands. It's a smart assistant trained on your own story. And the key with this really is that once you have played with ChatGPT enough and played with custom GPTs enough, this took me about 10 minutes to build. It's really quite simple. So I will try to be quick, but give me one sec. Zoom page go. Okay, so what I did was actually had ChatGPT create for Solterra, this fictional company, a whole body of different kinds of documents that you might need to use to integrate for a grant writing process. So those include some boilerplate, right? How do they market themselves? You can see here, right? What are their DEI and workforce commitments? What are the kinds of impact metrics and measurement frameworks that they use in gauging success? What are some of their past grant applications and feedback? ChatGPT has produced all of this for me so that we can use it, but you guys would have this for yourselves, obviously. Some pilot case studies that they've tried, strategic vision statement, biographies of the people who work for the company, overview of their technology, et cetera, use cases and target markets for the product. And all you have to do is effectively ask ChatGPT, how can I create a custom GPT that will write grants for me? And it will tell you exactly how to do so. It will give you explicit instructions. And so what does that look like? All you have to do is, and so many of you will be familiar with this process, I'm sure, but I want to just demonstrate how quickly and how effectively this can be achieved. You go to My GPTs and create a GPT. And if you ask it for instructions on how to create this grant writing process, it'll give you information about what information should be added to this custom GPT as background for it to use as building a grant. And all you have to do is take that file repository that it's instructed you about, upload it to ChatGPT, and add a prompt. All you do is tell it, you give it all that information, plug it in, and you say, you're Solterra's, and this is, and the instructions are it, you're Solterra's grant writing assistant, a new request for proposal has been released. I'll paste the grant prompt and use the uploaded documents to draft a high quality response. You select create, you select save, and I'll show you with an actual grant application process how quickly this actually can be achieved. So this is an actual grant proposal application. And as you'll see, I'm going to plug it in here, hit enter, and it will start the process of constructing the phases of this grant proposal. This could, I mean, it's tremendous efficiency for a business. Obviously, it's going to have to be fine-tuned and you're going to have to use your judgment. There has to be a human involved in the loop. But the power of this, it just as with these basic tools, is tremendous. And from here, right, once you've built this, once you've found what kind of an impact it can have, you can just ask ChatGPT, what are some commercially available tools that might replicate this and provide additional functionality, as I did. And you'll find programs like this, Grantable, or another is called Granted AI. The point is there's a sort of workflow involved in this. Investigate the problem, identify it, work with ChatGPT to think about how you might solve the problem, maybe build a prototype like this so that you can evaluate performance, And then, and really only then in most cases, maybe sometimes it might be a little bit of a different story, but most often then move on to this point where you're saying, okay, well, what are some commercial applications that might be worth investing in then? So I'm sorry that took a little bit longer than I'd hoped, but the point really is these processes can, if you treat ChatGPT or Copilot as your personal assistant, as the tool that is going to help you to identify problems, identify potential solutions, build prototypes, and then identify commercial alternatives, you can get from bewilderment to success very, very quickly. And countless examples like this that could be shared. So thank you very much for indulging me.
Darlene, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rob. Okay, now we're going to move to the next question. And I would like to go back to Pubali because your first mind map was about the introduction of AI into smaller businesses. I think it turns out to, and this is the effect on the owner and the staff. One of the issues, particularly for owners, is how they're motivated to do it, but how do they motivate their staff to come along? So, Pubali, could you respond to that question first?
So over the past few years, and I would say 2 years to be precise, is what I've seen companies trying to adopt AI successfully and unsuccessfully. So one of the things that have come out always is that taking an approach that I need AI, right? Versus trying to understand why, how, and where. So instead of saying that, hey, I want to implement AI across the board, successful AI implementation from SME's point of view comes when you identify one or two key areas where AI can actually solve a business challenge for you or a business opportunity for you. Tying it back to, for example, hey, my customer service is really slow, or maybe I do not have customer service, or the time to market for my content creation does not exist, or it's relatively slow. I have an insufficient lead qualification at this point of time. So, this allows you to have a very focused implementation and also measure your ROI. End of the day, you want to tie back your AI adoption into an effective measurement of ROI. And that is where I've seen, maximum success coming in from AI perspective. Like, hey, I have this challenge. This is where my challenge lies. This is why it's a challenge. And then finally, you ask your question, how? How comes into the part that, hey, do I need a homegrown solution or do I need to maybe go and like Rob showed, right? I have Grantify AI. Should I use that versus should I be able to create something that's more customized for my use case? I would say that start with user-friendly, accessible tools, understanding what your employee satisfaction looks like, what is going to be the learning curve. Maybe you need to begin with AI tools that are easy to use and easy to integrate with existing systems. For example, you might need to have like different customers and different enterprises think differently. For example, there are places where AI adoption becomes easier when there are not many boundaries that are put into. For example, saying that, hey, I'm going to create a tool, I'm going to use ChatGPT, for example, and I'm okay giving up all my data, all the documents I have to ChatGPT versus another scenario where the SME says that, hey, I have to follow a protocol. I will be using ChatGPT, but I need to have connectors to say my CRM or my Salesforce or my Jira or my ServiceNow. So at that point of time, the kind of adoption you'll be having, the path to adoption of ChatGPT or Gemini is going to look a little bit different. So, understanding what your workplace is and where your employee satisfaction lies, along with the security boundaries, is very important. Adopting something that is easy to use reduces your learning curve, which makes your AI adoption pretty easy to start with. Third, I would say is pilot projects with clear metrics. Before you do a full scale rollout, implement a pilot project with very clearly objectives. For example, that identify your KPIs, and maybe your KPI is, hey, I want to have an ROI of, say, 20% versus my previous campaign. Try to figure out patterns in which you can achieve. Test, learn, retest, relearn. Adjustment will always be a big factor when it comes to AI adoption. Finally, I would say that emphasize on human in the loop. Do not say that I'm going to automate and put everything on AI, whether it's my lead generation or whether it's me trying to adopt AI for certain factor. At this point of time, I would say having a human in the loop is very important, especially because you have brand ethics, you have brand values to think about, and even with the AI outputs that you generate, you need to have those checks and balances, making sure that there is like augmentation of human capabilities and not replacement, because that's how you're going to ensure ethical boundaries and also the brand voice consistency. Again, the most foundational part what comes into is have a clear path, learning path for your employees, and it can be as simple as, hey, do give them access to chat gpt and let them play with for certain amount of the day. Conduct workshops, for example, to start with. Also, to be very honest, and Rob will have much more understanding on this, several universities offer amazing programs online. Many of them are actually free of cost to start with. Leverage those as much as you can. So that's where I would say that the impact of owner employee satisfaction actually lies.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, and the first thing I'd say is, I would encourage you. The hot term, maybe it's not so hot anymore, was prompt engineering, right? Prompt engineering, building prompts for use in these kinds of tools is an important skill, but the way to build it is not to take a course. I think there's courses that are tremendously valuable that can help you to do things like what I just showed you, think about the broader world of AI. But it turns out that as the sort of algorithms are improving at a rate that is faster than what most of these, we can produce the content that might be offered in something like a Coursera course, right? So often these courses are already behind by the time they get published. The way to get to this, and what I do in my classes on AI and the future of work, is play with the tool, right? I mean, I became somewhat proficient, or started to become proficient with this, building, haikus and funny stories and limericks for my kids. So that's the first thing I would say. There's a term that's used for implementation, specifically within small and medium-sized enterprises. It's called thin wedge adoption, and Pubali really had her finger right on it, and it was describing exactly what it is. And it's just sort of finding this narrow, high-impact use case that delivers immediate value. So from a practical standpoint, right? I mean, the way to bring AI in is to start small and find these kinds of narrow but high impact use cases. Maybe it's grant writing, maybe it's demand forecasting, or maybe it's following up with quotes, or maybe it's inventory alerts. You can use these basic chat assistant type tools to prototype these kinds of things. There's also commercial software available, but the idea really is you find this single painful high frequency task, and you use a tool to develop a basic prototype solution, and you try to just map what's the return, right? Like, how does this compare to what we were doing earlier? You get measurable wins out of it, build some confidence within your company. And it's a starting point, right? And then you can start to expand horizontally, and as they put it in the literature, vertically, right? So now you're getting into deeper, more complex tools to solve the problems, and maybe integrated tools as well that are solving multiple problems at the same time. But what I really kind of wanted to emphasize, the pattern that's necessary really goes beyond like specific methods. It's about culture, right? It's about willingness to experiment and thinking about how that can be made a part of, the company's ethos. And so the first thing is that I believe in the need for a culture of embedded learning by doing, right? I mean, like I said, I think that it's far more effective to use ChatGPT as a resource to try to identify what the problems are and how to solve them, and to iteratively work with the tool to try to solve problems within your own company, and in the process become, increasingly more proficient using the tool itself. So, constantly trying to find opportunities to use it to sort of generate efficiencies, et cetera, and encouraging that within the company is an important step. Realizing then also, though, that it's not a replacement, right? It's not about full automation, but it's about reducing mental load to the extent that that's possible. And I think it's important to just have this kind of openness to the possibilities, because once that exists and once you're willing to try and play with it, it really does just snowball. Committing to really fast feedback loops, right? Like trying something and seeing if it worked. And that's part of the value of not just changing everything or trying to change everything, but experimenting, right? And the attitude of experimentalism can be really powerful. And then and only then really thinking in terms of scaling, because I think it can be incredibly daunting. I mean, in preparing and thinking about what I was going to say to you today, I was producing, using AI, of course, huge maps of different kinds of commercial grade tools that are available and what you might use and how you might use it and all the rest of it. And there's value in having those resources. But the truth is that it's the process of getting to finding which of those solutions is important is really the most crucial step. And it only follows, and it's only really possible when these kinds of like cultures and mindsets are embedded within the company. So starting small, finding that wedge, opening the door is a really important part of the process, but that's really only going to happen once these cultural mindsets and that fear that can sometimes impede growth is overcome. Play with the tools. That's my advice. Write some haikus. The best thing that ChatGPT ever did was in the very early days during 3.5, I believe, when I was starting to use it, it would be down often because they were overloaded. And when it was down, it would say, it would write you a custom haiku or a rap lyric or something like that, talking about the plight you were facing that you couldn't currently use ChatGPT. And that just inspired me to start doing that kind of thing, writing limericks for my kids, doing this kind of thing. And it snowballs. And I'm sure many of you are well beyond that point, and that's, but I think just highlighting the value of the mindset and having it sort of distributed throughout the organization is really important part of getting in the door with these kinds of tools.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, what I do want to do is shift into the area. There's a lot of excitement, enthusiasm, and moving into AI. I think we do have had questions before about how do particularly small companies and individuals with scarce resources manage ethical use, responsible decision making, also protecting not just your data, but data of customers or partners that provide that you're collaborating with. How do we do the manage the checks and balances side in bringing in AI when we can't afford, a full-time AI or even a part-time AI expert to help us through this? So Pubali, could you kick us off on this one?
So what I do see is a lot of enterprises adopting a clear AI ethics policy and guidelines within the org. So importantly, it's very important to develop your internal policies. Firstly, outlining what kind of data can be shared, what kind of data cannot be shared. And again, we have to understand that when we talk about Gemini or ChatGPT, there are different versions of it. Versions which are commercial, versions which are publicly freely available or available at a $20 probably per month. Commercially, on at an enterprise level, when I'm adopting AI, I would want to adopt it through an enterprise version, which is mostly when you're thinking about, from Google perspective, it's going to be Vertex Cloud. From ChatGPT's perspective, it's going to be OpenAI API. Also, you have to understand and go through and understand what is the privacy domains of each of these offering, right? What is the kind of data that I can bring into this versus not? To be very honest, OpenAI API and Vertex Cloud, for example, or for Amazon Bedrock as well, when you have that layered of adoption from an enterprise point of view, you're actually kind of proofing your data. You're not getting into the weeds where my data might be used by the Gen AI or the LLMs for training purposes. So, having those guidelines, having those, I would say, documentations around what can be done, how it can be done is very important. Understanding that AI can be biased is very important. A lot of time, bias in AI also comes from the data that we provide to AI. So, having those core checkpoints as to the data that I bring in, are they biased as well? And you know what's the funny part? You can actually leverage AI to find out bias in your data. That's the funniest part, because a lot of use cases that I'm working with at this point of time is where we are doing moderation in terms of data moderation, where we are actually we are having those checks and balances, where the first proof of concept is coming through the AI, and then we have a human in the loop. What I've also seen is an AI ethics steering committee. And again, this is a more advanced stage, I would say, when you've already had, I would say, a little bit of wins, a path to production from AI perspective. That's where you kind of say, identify certain champions within your org, and then create this steering committee, which kind of helps you handhold upscaling of other folks, and also brings out what are the ethical norms and security legal norms your orgs will be following. So that's very important. Finally, I would say, like, there are a lot of other stuff, but the other point that I would like to make is ensure data governance and privacy. Like, do have robust governance practices where you ensure that data quality, integrity, security are within the privacy regulations of your org, also of the regulations where you're operating. California might have very different uh, GDPR, not GDPR, but very different guidelines versus another state. Also, if you are someone selling to, or you are someone extending your market to Europe, you have to think a little bit differently at that point of time. So, my three takeaways would be is have clear boundaries, policies, and guidelines. Once you get a win, start thinking about ethical steering committee within your org. Implement bias detection, and it can be as simple as using another AI tool, ChatGPT for year, for example. And then finally is ensure data governance and privacy in what you're implementing and how you're implementing.
I don't have too much. I think that's a really good answer. I don't have too much to add to it. I mean, I think the thing that I've always found so novel is you ask ChatGPT if it's being biased, and it will tell you how sensitive and wonderful you're being for asking it the question. But it really will often do an excellent job of trying to, well, this is the ways in which you could be biased, right? I mean, it's the same story. It's offering you a menu of options, possibilities, and it may be identifying, it could be this, it could be that, it could be the other thing. So that human in the loop problem, right? You want to have a human in the loop who's evaluating things. That human is also still probably using AI as their tool to evaluate the AI, but it's a partner in a lot of respects. It's not always going to be right. You need to have oversight, but thinking of it as a tool, I think, is really valuable. The only thing I would add, I guess, there are a few resources, but one of them is the National Institute for Science and Technology has a risk management framework. It's a U.S. government agency that currently exists. Who knows if it'll exist a month from now, but it exists now. And they provide some guidelines and actually a checklist, right? Where they're to help companies to map their sort of AI landscape and think about, where there may be risks, need for, controls or governance. Often this is maybe geared more towards larger enterprises, but if you're interested, that's something that you could look into. And I'll share a link for distribution afterwards to the checklist. But yeah, I think that's all wonderful stuff. I think that's right on.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, where we want to start is, I think we've really covered the current state, things that you can do now, and that there are opportunities. But the pace of change is so fast with AI that we always have to have our eye on the future. Things are changing month to month rapidly. So this brings up a real challenge for small businesses, is planning. Because planning has been a real struggle for businesses in terms of the general environment, predicting anything, being stable in the next 30 days is pretty difficult. So how can small businesses, no matter what chaos we're living in, how can that help us plan? And also begin to dream about how generative AI could help our businesses. This is my personal belief, is that there is so much chaos in the small business environment. And there are so many pressures that we actually need new business models. The belief that traffic is the source of revenue from the streets, and that location is your most critical strategy. Those are really being evaporated in this technological age. And my personal, again, passion is that we all have to learn how to become value creation innovators in our own space, and that AI actually gives us the potential to be able to do that. But there is not much discussion about the potential of the 30 million small businesses and what they could generate for the economy if we understood it and learned how to craft it to who we are as people. To me, this is the really interesting element of the future of a small business. So I'm going to toss that question out to you, Rob, first, since you have the sort of social science background. What's the potential for people to do even greater things than we have ever thought with a small and mid-sized organization?
I think it's great, and it's funny. I almost want to throw it back to Pubali, but because of Laura had asked a question about agentic AI that I think is actually really relevant. But maybe I can just talk a little bit about some ways to think about planning, and then we can talk. I think that'd be a great time to maybe talk about where the AI is really headed. And the first thing really is that, again, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but starting with strategic intent, right? Like making this a purpose within your organization has to be the first step, and thinking about that strategically. So how are we going to organize in such a way as to ensure that this is made a priority and that we're making consistent gains on it? And I mean, I have an example from my university. We have these AI workshops where staff and faculty come together, faculty with specialization, staff who are proficient with these tools, and consistently are looking at how these tools are being used within our own organization, Halt Business School, in ways that can sort of improve workflows for staff, improve interconnection between staff and faculty, and really like crowdsourcing solutions, working together. But the key really is that we've assigned a time for it. We've made it a strategic priority. And I think that has to be an explicit commitment. And then from there, I mean, relying on the people who are doing the work to help identify where there are opportunities, right? Where are the pain points? What are the challenges? So running some sort of an AI opportunity workshop, right? And really making a point of trying to identify most impactful, bottlenecked, repetitive kinds of processes that might be, replicated or replaced is a good starting point. And making sure that you're not, overly daunted by the idea of we're going to solve this problem, try it out, right? And assign someone the role of trying it out. The one thing that I would say, I guess, that's important as you're thinking about, planning and helping to, realize these goals is, right, the challenge really does become, right, where I showed you how to use ChatGPT to write grants, right? But can it be integrated within existing workflows? And I think this is, and again, Pubali knows a lot more about this than I do, but thinking about these eventually, right, for your company as an ecosystem, right, a suite of tools, and this ties into the agentic AI conversation as well. I'll talk about that in a minute, maybe. But, right, so are there ways in which within Azure or Google, it's Vertex, right? Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, right.
Yeah.
AWS, right? Like there are suites of tools available through these major cloud computing and storage providers that are using AI, that exploit AI and can produce. Salesforce would be another example. Sort of integrated capabilities where the improvements that are being made in one place can be translated over into others, or the data that's generated can be moved across silos. Anyways, but so that's sort of the next step in the planning process. And then I think just having a plan for, right, where do we want to get, right? We're starting with maybe some ad hoc use, the wedge strategy, right? But we want to get to the point where we have sort of like standardized workflows. We have a map of how this all works. And just having a vision for that is really, really important. So,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, Pubali, I want to hand this back to you, and then I'd like you to introduce your mind maps so that the audience knows that they're going to get them and that they'll be sent to you, and how they might use them in terms of thinking forward. Okay,
Yeah.
take it away.
So for individuals, so one fundamental thing that is common among all of us is we love to give instructions and we love to see people following us. AI is that ideal tool that's going to listen to you, and maybe it cannot do it and tell you that I cannot do it at this point of time, but it's going to take and make an effort to do it. I think that's where AI actually sells today, because you kind of become the mentor or the coach for the AI and vice versa. But you are the person who is instructing the AI to do a job for you. Uh, Given into that, it's very important individually, and I'm talking from a very individual perspective, is having that AI literacy, right? Understanding the basics. It's very basics, like, hey, what are the capabilities and the limitations that I can have of this tool? The reason it becomes very, I would say, murky is because we refer to Chat GPT, we refer to Gemini, and this is what we do, like we talk about it. What we do not talk about is even within this ecosystem, there are several different versions that are actually capable of doing several different things. For example, uh, DALI is the one that actually generates images for you. Then you have the same thing comes down to VO, which generates videos for you. You also have use cases where one performs better than the other, and use cases vice versa. So, for example, you have deep research. What deep research does in Gemini, and it's the deep research that comes from Grok is also exceptionally good, is that you take a fundamental issue and you say that I want to go and research on it, and it can be something like, hey, how is the industry shaping up in terms of weather tech, and what are the upcoming startups, and how have they been funded? A very simple question. and you want to gather that data. Imagine the amount of work you would need to do. Probably explore hundreds and hundreds of websites. Today, you can take this, put it into, say, Deep Research or Grok, and that will create a beautiful report for you. What it also does, it gets to you with references that you can click, that you can confirm that, hey, this is the data I'm gathering from. This is where the citation is done. This is the research paper that I've got the stats from. And now you have this beautiful report in front of you that has saved you probably days' work, right? Days or weeks of work. Another simple thing to understand is that, hey, how am I leveraging? And we do not do it. And especially as women, I see that women adoption of AI is way lesser than men do. We actually can make AI, and I'm going to laugh about it, is our coach on a daily to daily basis. And I do that. I use AI today to plan my day. I use AI today to organize events. I use AI to entertain my kids. And what more can I ask for if my kids are happy? So think about AI as a toolkit that is your friend. Develop the AI literacy. Start slow, understand the capabilities, understand the limitations, and then think about what is the data I want to share with it, what are the data I don't want to share with it. That's individually how I place AI. Individually, how I place AI in workshop. I think, Rob, you did an excellent job of touching agentic workflows, agents, etc. I'm going to leave at that, but I did want to talk about the individual and how I leverage AI today in my day life as well.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Could you give me what is the difference between the gap, the size of the gap between men adopting AI and women?
I don't want to be quoted on the number, but it's 2 digits, somewhere
Two
between 20
digits,
to 30%.
30%. Okay.
20 to 30%.
20
Maybe.
to, okay, that's actually better than I thought it might be. Okay, ladies, we're running behind. We got to catch up and surpass. Okay. Um, let's see. Okay, that's planning. Um, I think that the questions, since we have a little time, I'd like you both to comment on this almost total bypass of small business needs in terms of use of AI and or support in the use of AI and funding for smaller organizations to do more innovative work. I sat in on a webinar last week with a professor who's Hawaiian and who is doing work with communities in the Hawaiian Islands and Tahiti and other Pacific areas. And, he says, what we could do for these communities is powerful, but there are no grants out, or it's so competitive that it's the reach of AI is still limited. Rob, could you probably have seen that in the academic world. Could you comment on that since we have a few extra minutes, and then I'll go back to Pubali. Oops, you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry, my dog was acting up for a moment there. He may yet do it again. Could you just rephrase the question for just?
Well, whenever I bring this up about working with small businesses on the AI, it's sort of poo-pooed, and
Yeah.
but when I heard this scholar saying, "Here I am," he's a data wonk. He knows he can help these communities, but I don't see it where I could go or who's even interested to talk to. There was also an event at Google for just individual AI, and there was no publicity about it or anything. So it's like it's only for the big people with $1 trillion in investment. What do we do for the tiny guys like us?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem is that, the money is in the big fish, in terms of and a lot of and again, something Pubali would know much more about than I do, but a lot of what's going on, particularly when it comes to things like actually kind of a good opportunity to talk about. Laura raised a question earlier about agentic AI and the differences, right? I mean, agentic AI is about creating, I mean, and again, this is a non-expert view on the issue, right? But it's about creating sort of like tiered agents within a sort of hierarchy in which you have sort of like a commanding agent who's like allocating responsibilities. You give it a task, it decides how it's going to distribute responsibilities, and so it can act effectively like an employee. And the interesting thing is that there's huge opportunities for small businesses in that regard, right? I mean, I'm not sure that it'll be great for labor force reports in the future, but the truth is that you can sort of delegate tasks in a much more robust kind of way to AI agents who are actually capable of making discriminating judgments about what to do and when to do it, and how to do it, versus a sort of just commanding a chatbot to assist you in a certain kind of way and you having to take on those responsibilities. I don't know enough about the costs or the potential costs of getting involved in that kind of thing. But I mean, I do think that you're right. There's a sort of, the appeal is primarily to industry, like large scale industry consumers, and that there's a real need for education. It really is about education, I think, for small and medium-sized business owners to just understand how these tools can be exploited. Right? I mean, the high-level methodology, there's a question in the chat about a high-level methodology or example of how to use AI for prototyping and building quickly an iterative report, right? I mean, my answer would be like, for people like yourselves is to use, that's the question. That's a question. It's a good question for me. It's an even better question for ChatGPT, right? Or for these kinds of tools, because I think that's where you have a sort of opportunity to develop answers that are tailored to your use case. And I'm not sure that the full potential of these relatively simple tools is fully available. There are other, investment in platforms like Salesforce and others can give you access to this and give you sort of integrated solutions across your business. I'm not sure how well those are currently targeting smaller companies, but
yes. Okay. Pubali, I want you to get your voice in here.
Yeah, so in terms of what I cannot talk about grants given that I am in a space which is more commercial,
Yeah.
but what I can do say is there are tips and tricks which I've seen small businesses do in terms of getting credits. One of the quick things to think about is a lot of time when a new model comes in, and it can be a Gemini or a Chat GPT model, when it's in preview and when it's in experimentation mode, so it comes with an extension of preview or comes with an extension of EXP, they actually introduce it for free. At that time of what they're doing is they're kind of collecting data, and you have a thumbs up and a thumbs down for every output it generates. So basically, you can leverage those and substantially kind of have an edge in terms of cost. A lot of services going beyond Vertex as well, like, and I can talk about the AWS and GCP ecosystem, is firstly, when you talk about ADK or Agentic or Agent Space, today, if you sign up as a SME and you get allowed listed, you actually have a 90-day period of not paying for it. What is Agent Space? Basically, what Agent Space gives you is an employee productivity tool where you can go and create these small agents that connects to different data sources. It also has deep research. It has a data science agent as well, but it gives you a 90 days of free usage. That is one. In terms of AWS is if you create a new account and then tie it back to your startup, it gives you $1,000 of credits. Similarly, GCP does as well. I don't think so. It's 3,000. It's $1,000. It's $300. But within GCP, depending on what AI services you are using, there are a lot of free packages available. So it's more like what information is not very easily available in the website, but it's there. There are ways you can leverage and have certain cost advantages.
Okay, good tips. All right. Now we have an opportunity to switch to Q&A. We have a number of questions out there. And Evine, I'd like us to go back to our slides. Oh, um, uh, we skipped the slides from Pubali,
Yeah.
which has mind maps on how to introduce AI into your organization, and also AI tools for business. And here you can see is some of the how it's been constructed. Those are going to be sent to you, and just take them one step at a time. But Pubali did a very good job in terms of making sense of the stage of here's what introduction looks like to your organization, and then here are the business tools that you can use. But Evine, do you have a good question from the chat box that we can begin to open up the Q&A section here?
I have a question from Laura. She says, where do you see the most exciting tension between logic and creativity in AI solutions? Are there use cases where machine learning surprises you with a kind of intuition?
I can go. I mean, this is something that I'm a philosopher at heart, and this is something that is a beautiful question to me. I actually, this is part of how I do teach my design thinking course in the role of AI, and students consistently ask one of two things, right? Think one of two things: either this is destroying creativity, or it's this magical tool for empowerment of our creativity. And I think it does boil down to a certain extent to what we think creativity is, right? And we often think of it as kind of a black box, right? It's something going on in our head, and then we're creative, right? But I mean, to go back to those design concepts, the design thinking process, this idea of problem solving, creative problem solving, it's really grounded in how creative people tend to think about these things. And yeah, and the right. I mean, these tools empower us to identify new kinds of problems, come up with solutions that are completely unanticipated or unexpected, and explore their implications with almost zero cognitive labor on our behalf, right? I mean, it's magical what it can do. When we become entirely right, I mean, I guess the issue really is that we still have to be the discriminators, right? We're the judgment in that process. But I have been continually impressed with the ways in which it does exactly what Laura describes. Surprises me, right? And I remember there's a great documentary on Netflix way back. It's called AlphaGo. It's about Google's work with a program that was designed to play the board game Go. And it created whole new ways of playing the game that humans couldn't even recognize as having value until they actually saw them in action. They thought the machine was broken, but it was actually using a higher order strategy that nobody had yet sort of imagined. There's things like this happen all the time using these tools, and I think it's truly an opportunity to empower creativity. The quality of projects in my design thinking classes have gone through the roof since they've started using ChatGPT. And it's not because it's just doing it for them, it's because it's opening doors for them to understand what the possibilities really are.
To add to it is AI looks like magic, but it's not magic. It's actually you being the magician and wizard behind it. So, in terms of logic and creativity, it's always going to be very relative. For a person like me who cannot draw, but I love to imagine. I love to imagine and fantasize a beautiful, probably place with lots of bubble gums and colors and all. I cannot do it myself, but AI can do it for me. So for me, it boosts my creativity. For some people, it might be like, hey, it actually kind of corners my creativity at this point of time. So it's a very relative, I think it's a very relative perspective. End of the day, it's always going to be use case basis and how you're implying it and what is your path of taking that and using into like taking into production. Today, my 6-year-old is super happy and super stoked because he's creating stories and he's creating whatever he's imagining. And I think it actually adds to his intelligence because he's exploring things he wouldn't have done ever without AI. So for me, I think the pros outweigh the cons for me. That's where I am with it.
Okay. Just one comment. After we did the first workshop, Francesca found an article that said that some people were actually reducing their thought processes after a lot of exposure and work with AI. They were sort of relying on it to do all the thinking. So I think it's important to emphasize that is also an opportunity. When we were working as a team, we all discovered gaps that prompted us to think more. So I think it's a personal choice to say, am I going to use this as a vacation from thinking, or am I going to use it as a way to challenge myself to even think deeper and more flexibly and creatively in terms of solving problems? And
Can I just add to that? I think because I think it's a great point, and it really maps onto the experience that we're having right now in higher education, which is the people who already have the ability to do things like dissect quality writing or understand what a good solution to a problem looks like. The power of AI to enhance their creative capabilities is really incredible, right? The problem that we're facing really is that at much, more elementary levels of education, it can be used with great ease as a replacement for the processes that are necessary to get to the point where you can actually use the tool as a creative engine. And so that's where, right, at the MBA level, I'm relatively unconcerned with, you want to write your paper with AI? You better be able to do a good job of, actually making sure it's a good paper. And usually you can tell, right? They can dissect the quality. But when you're teaching undergraduates or you're teaching people in high school, and instead of building the skills that will then translate into them having the expertise to be able to evaluate the results of AI production themselves, now we're potentially losing the skill set that's necessary to exploit the creative possibilities of these tools. And that's where I'm afraid, and I guess I'm fortunate in a way that I'm not involved in that, but that's what troubles me.
Okay, I've heard that pointed. Okay, Evine, do you have another question? We have time for one or two more.
We have a question from Agashri. She's asking, in the creative pursuit, how can you ensure you can get personalized and unique solutions?
So I can take that. Today, firstly, I do want to emphasize on another thing is that with the evolution of AI, what we have been seeing is now we have models that give you what they are thinking and explain the thinking logic to you. So it kind of boosts your way of productivity because now it's not a black box anymore. The AI is actually going to tell you what steps it took, what was his thinking process, his or her thinking process, why did they suggest this versus that, and it's going to outline everything in terms of logical steps along with the output. So that kind of adds a little bit of, I would say, cushioning to what you're getting from it. In terms of creative pursuit, RAG built system, which is basically augmented system with your own data, today exists, which kind of ensures that whatever the AI is generating, it's generating within the boundaries of data that you are bringing in. In terms of unique solutions, I would say it's a little bit of prompting, it's a little bit of having a conversation along with the AI to get into the unique solution, right? What you're kind of, how you're interacting with and where you're getting it. A quick tool that comes to my mind where you can start looking into is Notebook LLM. It's again a free tool. What you can do is you can kind of point to websites, you can point to your Google Drive, you can point to different documents, and then start asking, like, hey, can you create a podcast of it? Or can you create a briefing doc for it? Or recently, what I did is I had an exercise with an SMB where they had all this document and they want to kind of corner down one feature set that they want to create in Q2. That feature set is something that they already had in plan, but they wanted to leverage AI to create documentation and customer journey for it. And it did an amazing job. So it can be done. The answer to your question is RAG. One of the tools I would suggest is look into Notebook LLM and then go with it.
Okay, that's really helpful. I think one quick question, shorter question, specific question. Okay. Actually, I have one specific question. What about copyrights? If you're an author, if you're a poet, if you're an artist, and you're going on, you have to sell online. How do we manage prototypes? I met with IP lawyers, and they said if you want a copyright, you're not using AI. Is that true? What's your opinion? You're puffing and puffing over there, Rob.
I don't know. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. I don't know the answer, to be honest. But I'll tell you what I have known. I know now, and that is that in submitting journal articles, for example, like academic journal articles, they're just asking you to disclose that you used AI to write your paper in many cases.
Oh, okay.
And so we're getting into a space where that hybridization is really becoming a part of everyday workflows for academics.
Okay.
And I see a lot of potential for people getting in big trouble for things that they wouldn't get in trouble for elsewhere. I don't know enough about the specific details of the sort of copyright law side of things to give an informed answer on it, but I do know that it's a brave new frontier.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a scary one since Pubali, do you have any thoughts there?
It's a gray area. I leave it at that. But again, um, what are you using it for? Is that an art that comes into your blog post and you say that, hey, generated by AI? As long as you're not earning, I mean, I don't want to get into the gray area of, hey, is this something I'm creating and earning of it? Generally, I've seen disclosure works. There is a little bit of murkiness because what I do see customers doing is they bring their own artifacts. Suppose there's a company that has different animations. They bring in their animations and they kind of fine tune the model to generate specific images with their own models. At that point of time, the legality of that is different versus the other things that are generated. So again, it comes down to being a gray area, what your use cases and how you are bringing in the data, what you're leveraging, if you're fine tuning or not. So a lot of conversations there.
Okay, good.
I mean,
Answer.
disclosure is, I mean, I think that's one good takeaway, right?
Okay.
Disclosure is incredibly important, and it's one of the ethical, guidelines that really should dominate your thought when you're producing content. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, this has been a terrific discussion. I'm very pleased with this. I hope the audience is also, but I think we're at a time where we kind of need to wrap up here. So can we go back to the slide deck? Yes. Oh, I always close the panel with this question to you, to our panelists. What is the number one thing that you want the participants out there to remember, to embed in their mind about this webinar? Pubali, what do you?
Okay. AI is here to help you leverage it as much as you can. Also, another quick thing is that ask questions around AI and do your own research before you say that this is the way to go.
Okay, ask lots of questions. Yes, yes. Okay, Rob?
I think that I would hope that people would remember how quickly we were able to build that example that I gave at the start. I think that's like a real key, and that really did just come from me asking the tool, give me an example of a kind of tool that small and medium-sized business owners might need in the clean tech sector that would help improve their workflows. Can we build it? And it gave me step-by-step instructions, and it told me exactly what I would need. And that's exactly how easy it is, right? It's not just your friend. It should be your first resource. It should be the go-to, and it can lead you to all the other resources that you may need. But if you treat it as a tool for learning and a tool for guidance in helping to realize your objectives, that's where the power really lies. And being open to that possibility, not being afraid of that possibility.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, got that embedded in everybody's mind. Okay, I think our next one is to say thank you to the people that have helped us today. And Evine Bezal has helped us with the questions, and managing this. I think Marika has also helped us. And oops, can you go back? Can we back up to the preview of our third session? Because we have worked very hard to have a spectacular wrap up to our series. And the session 3 is on June 10th. And it's going to be how to shape the big opportunities with generative AI. And I think this is really important for sustainability and climate tech, since we have big complex projects where we have to have big solutions. And our two guest speakers are Dr. Rihanna Rogers, who actually worked with the U.S. Treasury Department and the White House and was involved in defining the AI strategy for the nation. And so she's going to be here, and there she will also point to some of the written documents that are publicly available that were proposed standards. But she's spoken around the world. Also, she's an expert on the digital divide, and we'll talk about those issues. Our other guest is Dr. Frederick Verla, and he is the assistant dean to UCLA Extension, and he's their specialist in AI and innovation. And so he will give us, both of them will give us their latest updates on where AI is going. And again, we have that theme of how we can use it personally and particularly as women and for our families and our lives, and also in terms of our careers and advancing our use of and understanding of AI in terms of career advancement, because every manager and executives have to understand this at this point. So we have hit the magic number of 10:30, and so we expect the whole audience and friends, Pubali and Rob, please join us for that one. We think that will be a great discussion. And send your friends because we're going to have a great finish to this series. And thank you so much for your participation. We have got a pile of information communicated to the audiences. Thank you. Thank you again for attending, participating, everything.